Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gangana Sadrisham Tattvamasyadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalam Achalam Sarvadi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami.
Hello, welcome. These teachings are from a work assigned to Adi Sankaracharya, which is called Aparokshanabuthi, or self-realization, or direct perception of the self, of the Atman. And it is an introduction to Vedanta. It speaks about Raja Yoga with a Vedantic vision. So listen very carefully to these teachings, reflect upon them, then meditate upon these teachings so that they can bear fruit in your heart. May you all find freedom. So moving on, verse 29. O you ignorant one, why do you assert the blissful, ever-existent Atman which resides in your own body as is evidently different from it, which is known as Purusha and is established by the Shrutis identical with Brahman to be absolutely non-existent? So, you ignorant one, why do you confuse the Atman with the body, which resides in your own body, and you take the Atman as non-existent? So this verse is very interesting. So the Atman which resides in your body, the individual soul which resides in your body, which is known as Purusha, as the cosmic soul, and which is deemed by the scriptures as Brahman itself, Purusha as equal to Brahman itself. And like I've explained previously in the beginning, which is equal to God. God equals Purusha. Purusha equals to Brahman. So God equals to Brahman. Just slight difference in philosophy, but same existence, same realization. So this is important to take in consideration. How even by speaking in apparent terms of duality, this meets oneness. Everything meets oneness. So this ignorant is being called upon because of this confusion of taking the body as real and the real self, the real identity, Atman, as unexistent, when it is absolutely the other way around. And going back to our snake, which is seen in the rope, the snake cannot perceive the rope because the snake doesn't exist in the first place. So what can be perceived by non-existence? Existence is foreign to non-existence. Oh, you ignorant one, try to know with the help of the Shruti and reasoning your own self, Purusha, which is different from the body, not a void, but the very form of existence, and very difficult for persons like you to realize. With the help of the Shruti, because the Shruti talks about, the scriptures talk about the differences of the body and the Atman, their own nature, their own different natures. And for this one, for the deluded one, he goes through eliminating that which is not real. Only a void remains. But it is a void for the snake only. It's not a void, it is fullness. But for the deluded one, what lasts is just a void. But that void is absolute existence. And very difficult for persons like you, those who are under illusion, to realize. And again, this so the scriptures are pointing the difference between the Atman and the body, but just to ascertain that the body is not real, not to give reality to both, saying that they are different, so both exist. Is not that. It's just to clarify, because as it has been mentioned, body is non-existent. So this pointing out their differences is not to prove the existence of both. So the help of the Shruti and reasoning, it's not only reading the truths about the Atman, about your real self, but reasoning on them and putting aside through discrimination that which is not real, holding on to reality. The Supreme Purusha, known as I, the ego, is but one, whereas the gross bodies are many. So how can this body be Purusha? So the body is made of different bodies as we will perceive. So they are many. Identity is but one. So how can this identity be the bodies? And how can the bodies be Purusha? And again, Purusha, same as God, and Purusha, same as Brahman. So God, Brahman. So realization of Brahman, if you seek realization of Brahman, or you seek the realization of God, is the same. If you're pointing towards oneness, towards merging with or dissolution in, it is the same. So even by addressing duality is in the direction of oneness only. I, the ego, is well established as the subject of perception, whereas the body is the object. I can see the body, so it is an object of my perception. So I am that which is observing the body and not the body itself. Body is observed, I am the observer. This is learned from the fact that when we speak of the body, we say, this is mine. So how can this body be Purusha? How can this body be me if it is mine? It is an object of perception. It is perceived, not the perceiver. I am the perceiver. It is a fact of direct experience that the I, Atman, is without any change, whereas the body is always undergoing changes. So how can this body be Purusha? So through the different changes of the body, of the life of the body, through the different stages of life, through the different emotions that the body undergoes, through childhood, old age, the body goes through many, many, many changes, but the sense of I always remains the same. So how can this body be Purusha, that ultimate reality, unchanging one? Wise men have ascertained the real nature of Purusha from the Shruti text. There is nothing higher than he, Purusha. So how can this body be Purusha? So, from the Sweta Swatara Upanishad, goes like this: there is nothing higher, subtler, or greater than this Purusha. It is the highest, who stands in the luminous sphere, supremely unique and immovable like a tree, has nowhere to move. It is unique. It is the highest of the highest. It is total. And by whom all this creation is filled, is filling all his creation. It is the subtraction of it. It is God itself. Again. So the wise men have ascertained the real nature of Purusha. The wise men, those who have had that ultimate experience of reality. Again, the Shruti has declared in the Purusha Sukta that all this is verily Purusha. So how can this body be Purusha? So, in the Purusha Sukta, which forms a part of rich Rig Veda, where we find the highest conceptions of the cosmic being, whereas this universe has emanated. So the sloka goes, the Purusha is verily all this, which is the manifested world. He is all that was in the past and that will be in the future. Everything is in it. There's nothing outside of it. He is the Lord of the abode of bliss and has taken his transient form of the manifest universe, so that the jivas, those individual souls that believe to be incarnated, may undergo the effects of their actions and through them regain their lost realization of their real identity. So also it is said in the Brihadaranyaka that the Purusha is completely unattached. So how can this body, where in her innumerable impurities, be Purusha? So the reference comes to this passage. The Purusha is not accompanied in the waking state, but that which he sees in a dream, for he is completely unattached to everything. So this is, well, it is clear more or less, but in the sense that whatever he is experiencing in the dream, he is not accompanied by that in the awakened state, because he is unattached. He doesn't belong there. There again, it is clearly stated that the Purusha is self-illuminated. So how can the body, which is inert, insatient, and illuminated by an external agent, be Purusha? So the passage is here, the Purusha is self-illuminated, here in the dream. And how can this body, which is inert, insatient, and illuminated by an external agent, which is Purusha, so how can it be Purusha if he is illuminated by Purusha, which is self-illuminated, doesn't depend from any other light, from any other source of life for its own existence? It is self-illuminated. Moreover, the Karmakand also declares that the Atman is different from the body and permanent, as it endures even after the fall of the body and reaps the fruits of actions done in this life. So the Atman is different from the body. If it wasn't, the fruits of the actions would pertain to the body only, and they would cease with the death of the physical body. But that's not what happens. The body falls, the body dies, and the Atman still reaps the fruits of the actions done through that body. Even the subtle body consists of many parts and is unstable. It is also an object of perception. It is changeable, limited, and non-existent by nature. So how can this body be Purusha? So again, subtle body is more or less equal to the physical body, just of a different nature, more subtle one, but still an object of perception. It has limitations. It is consisted of many, many parts. It is limited and non-existent by nature. Again, the snake in the rope is non-existent. The mirage in the desert, the oasis that is seen through a mirage, doesn't exist in the desert. So does this subtle body, which is still an object of perception and is of the nature of non-existence. How can it be Purusha if the Purusha is absolute existence? The immutable Atman, the substratum of the ego, and thus different from these two bodies, and is the Purusha, the Ishvar, the Lord of all, the Self of all. It is present in every form and yet transcends all. So, again, here is in this verse the comparison, comparing the Purusha as equal to Ishvar, which is God, the Lord of all, the Self of all. It is present in every form and yet transcends them all. So again, this immutable Atman, the substratum of the ego, that which gives birth to the ego, which is its substratum, is thus different from these two bodies. And it is the Purusha. Atman is equal to the Purusha. The Purusha is equal to God, to Ishvar, the Lord of all. So these are all same. So the I, the real I, is God, and God equals Brahman. Atman equals Purusha, Purusha equals Ishvara, Ishvara God, and Purusha equals Brahman. So God equals Brahman. So in this part, in this introduction, the full force of devotion to God makes it more easy, more meaningful, more possible to move into direction of oneness, because they are all the same. End is the same, words are different. So, but where this intended is that this Atman, this individual identity, equals God, equals Purusha, equals Brahman, is present in all but transcends all. Like the rope, which is present in the snake. Without it, the snake wouldn't exist, wouldn't be seen. But it transcends the snake because the snake doesn't really exist. Thus, the enunciation of the difference between the Atman and the body, as indirectly asserted indeed after the manner of the Tarka Shastra, the reality of the phenomenon the phenomenal world. But what ends of human life are served thereby? So, the enunciation of the difference between the Atman and the body has asserted indirectly, because it's not directly, but as to saying that the Atman has these qualities, the body has these qualities, so they are different. But indirectly, we are giving reality to the body, asserting its reality, both its reality. So it is ascertaining duality. But that's not its point. But what ends of human life are served? Certainly not moksha, because, well, moksha, because it is affirming duality. So thus, the view that the body is the Atman has been denounced by the enunciation of the difference between the Atman and the body. Now it is clearly stated the unreality of the difference between the two. So now we are going to state the unreality of the difference between the two, because the later, the body, is non-existent. No division in consciousness is admissible at any time, as it is always one and the same. Even the individuality of the jiva must be known as false, like the delusion of a snake in the rope. So again, the jiva is the Atman, which believes to be incarnated. So its reality, its individuality, in comparison with other apparent jivas, just in that context only, because there's nothing else but individuality, because there's only oneness. But in this context, individuality as comparison with other identities must be known as false, like the delusion of the snake in the rope. So the snake has no individuality because it has no existence. Okay.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.